Up till now, the social support disabled children have received has come from several departments, each using their budget to block buy professionally selected resources and facilities for the families to use. But with the individual budget system, after a needs assessment, funds from each relevant department are combined to create an individual budget for each child. The family then has control and can choose support that best suits their child.
Traditionally, as a social worker, I would go out and assess a family. I would then talk through a range of options of services that were available to the family and to see which was the best fit for that family. I would then take any recommendations that I would make and with the family's views in mind to our funding panel and ask for agreement for those services to be put in place.
Before we had the individual budget, Harry had direct payments through children with disabilities. But it was quite restrictive. We could only use it on support hours for him.
Before we had the individual budgets, Callum found it very difficult to leave the house, not wanting to do any activities, and really his life was going to school, coming home from school and just sitting indoors.
We had a carer coming in, but it was mainly used in the morning because that's when I had difficulty. So it was mainly bathing Ruby, getting her ready, and then that left the rest of the day really I was on my own caring for Ruby, and it was quite difficult.
I'd have to phone up social services, for example, to try and get the funding for the summer holiday scheme, to have a worker to come along with her. They would then have to come along and do an assessment, which normally took 2 or 3 sessions. They would then have to come back and get it signed and then go away again and come back again. So all in all, it's very intrusive, and it was usually about 5 or 6 days that were being taken up of wasting their time and my time.
With the individual budgets, it's very different because what happens is, together with the family, you would look at what the children's needs are and how the family sees that these could be met with the money that's available to them.
They know what their budget is before they start to put together a plan of support for the young person, and that's really, really different. And one of the analogies that one of the families gave me at the beginning was that you're used to having a village shop, and the bread you get is basically your sliced wrap bread. With an individual budget, you have gluten-free, seeded, unsliced, whatever, and you didn't know that you could do it all those different ways, but actually with an individual budget you can. Another difference is the control and responsibility that the family have, because they can take complete charge. Once the support plan's been agreed, they can run it and they can handle the money and everything else. They can employ the staff they want to or do the other things that they said, and it's down to them. Obviously we still review it, but they're in charge.
I decided to try the individual budget because I wanted freedom to choose when I wanted care and what I used the care for.
Not just being dependent on what services are being provided by various voluntary organisations, charities and local authority.
The process that the family would go through would be that they would indicate they were interested in an individual budget. We would then do an assessment of need, which would be the normal childcare assessments, initial assessments, core assessments, but we'd also do a form of resource allocation, which would indicate what the indicative budget is. And if that budget is agreed with the family, they would then put a support plan together with help if they would like that help. And the support plan is about the aspirations that they and their young person have and how they plan to meet them.
I spoke with Nigel and Antley about it, and they both agreed it would be a great idea.
Essex County Council put together some planning live days for us as families where we all came together, and people facilitated and let us know what kind of things we had to make sure in the plan and best ways to think about what was important for us.
Planning live consisted of a couple of workshops held during the day.
Some of the ideas that was coming out, and we were encouraged to do that, is to think outside the box a little bit, not just at the generic things that we would expect, but some of the families come up with some fantastic ideas.
So we started off by doing that and then went away. Pretty much as a family, we drew up Harry's support plan.
I just kind of wrote an everyday guide of what life with Ruby was like and what I would like it to be like.
It really, really makes you look at your child very closely and look at the things that the opportunities that they could have and perhaps the opportunities they haven't had up to now. So it was emotionally quite challenging as well. Harry's one of these people who would quite happily spend all his time in his bedroom with his laptop and his television, so it's about getting out and doing more. The things we wanted for Harry was for him to be more independent and certainly more self-sufficient from me and his dad. He doesn't exhibit bad behaviour as such, but he likes to talk to himself and reenact things from the television. So that was another thing that we wanted to work on around what is socially acceptable behaviour and when it's okay to do that kind of thing. And one of those things was around being with other people and seeing how they behave.
Making support plans is really, really challenging for a family. And the way we do it is we try to get families together with somebody who's really experienced to facilitate. So you've got families who can spark off ideas between each other. It's then a case of sitting down to write the detail. And we've said in Essex that we didn't want a pro forma because it's really important that these are individual and they reflect the young people. But we have provided some really good guidance as to what needs to be answered in the support plan.
I made the decision to write the plan myself, and I quite enjoyed writing the plan and adding photos and making it quite personal. And I felt that people needed to know the kind of personal side and realise what the family's actually like. It made me realise what I was doing with Ruby and how extensive Ruby's care was. You don't really realise until it's written down in a plan, you know, what life is actually like every day.
If we do work with people respectfully and at an appropriate time, actually we can engage anybody in this. But the process itself is not just for the confident, eloquent self-advocates. It can work for anybody.
When we heard that Harry was going to have be offered an individual budget, it didn't interest Harry at all.
And that's everything.
And it says she knows her own mind, and she's been very, very much involved in saying what she'd like.
That's me.
And what do you want to be?
Fashion model.
Fashion model and a rock chick.
Right, darling. That's my daddy boy.
Harry has a circle of support, so we got the circle of support together. Harry decided he didn't want to be part of that meeting. But what he actually did was he went and sat in the conservatory, so he had all the doors open, and every now and then he would shout something through if he didn't think that people were saying the right thing. We also had someone there to graphically facilitate the meetings, so they drew pictures so that Harry could see what had been talked about, and each time they'd finished a sheet of paper they took it out and showed it to Harry. And the outcome of that meeting was that we talked about all the things that Harry really enjoyed doing and the things we thought he might like doing in the future, and that definitely influenced how the budget was spent.
Go, Cox!
She wants to be a rock chick, she wants to be a fashion designer, she wants to be a whole variety of things, and she desperately wants to be on YouTube. So she has had a big say in all the various ideas.
Hit finish!
I think the panel was initially quite daunting. I think just on our thoughts about how it would go, but in fact they made it very easy for us and very relaxed. So I mean, I think people will, that will be one of their concerns, but that was a good experience. That was a very good experience from our point of view.
We were all there together. Questions were asked and answered, and it meant that the whole process was over and done with really quickly.
We haven't yet had a plan where the panel has said this is totally inappropriate, but I think that's the result of good working as we've gone along, because you shouldn't get to a panel and get your plan thrown out. They may ask a little bit more detail, possibly, but that's all.
Our plan went through quite quickly, about 3 months I think in total, from actually sort of starting and going to the meetings to actually getting the plan authorised and approved. The help we were given was through Georgina.
Yeah.
She's helped tremendously. So really we had no hiccups at all with our plan.
With individual budgets, the financial resources available to families are not very different to how they were before. They're just made available in a different way and can be used differently.
When families put the support plans together in the holistic way that we practice the person-centred planning, you start off with dreams and aspirations, and that can lead to raised expectations. Well, actually, these are all the things we could achieve. But clearly the budgets from the statutory agencies are limited, and they're going to become even more limited.
Some families are familiar with dealing with the money to support their disabled child, as they've had direct payments. But for others, taking on an individual budget means managing the money will be a new experience.
What we've done is we've said that there are in Essex 2 organisations you can use. One where we really strongly recommend you go to get a full briefing about being an employer, and there's all sorts of help there. And that organisation can also help recruit staff if that's what the families want. So there's a big sense of reassurance there. Then there's another organisation who will do payroll if the families want it. I think the fact they know it's there, I think that feels like a safety net, and it gives them the confidence to try it for themselves. But equally, they can say, there's a certain thing that we would like you to commission for us, because actually that particular bit is too much hassle.
Yeah. Once our plan had been approved, we then set up a bank account for Ruby. That gives us the freedom to use it when we need to.
Children to school. You're going to go and have a look around them?
Yes.
For actually managing the budget, I didn't have a problem. So it's just a case of keeping your expense receipts and sending them in quarterly. The actual individual budgets team send you a form that you can just fill out, which is like your incomings and your outgoings. But there is help available for anyone that finds paperwork or anything like that a bit daunting.
See you later. Bye. Bye. I'm Laura and I'm Ruby's carer. Bye. See you later.
See ya.
I've been working with an agency for about 2.5 years with children with disabilities being placed with other families, but in this case I work for Charlotte directly with Ruby, employed by her direct.
I don't regard myself as being an employer, but I handle Ruby's budget, so ultimately I am. But I find it can sometimes be quite challenging. You have to kind of remain professional, so if carers aren't doing the job that you would necessarily like, being that employer and broaching those subjects can be quite daunting. But I think the more you kind of manage the budget, the more experience you kind of get that confidence that if it's not working for you, you can change it.
In Essex, we've set up quite a good system for supporting employment of PAs. You can go through what they call Essex Pass, who will then take care of all of the costs and all of the staffing, wages, and all of the various other bits and bobs that go with it, and staffing insurance and things like that.
We use Essex Pass, and they deal with all the carers' pay. I just email over the hours that they've worked that week, and they get paid accordingly. Sometimes, especially in the holidays, we use more care than usual, so then I pay more into that account, but sometimes it's less.
It's been well thought through, and the systems are set up for you to be able to use and for you to be able to employ people that are suitable for your child.
When we originally wrote the budget, we did ask for communication aids for Ruby, specific communication aids. Then as Ruby developed, we realised that it wasn't suitable for Ruby. The communication aids was then changed, and it gave us the freedom to do that easily, but the outcome remained the same.
So good.
Having the responsibility of managing the individual budget can be quite daunting, actually. You kind of feel at the beginning, is this okay to be spending this money on this? But you almost enjoy having that responsibility. It's boosting my confidence.
I'm here just to give Charlotte a hand with washing Ruby, dressing Ruby if it's in the morning, because she's getting bigger now, so it's more of a two-person job, her having a bath and everything and getting in and out and stuff like that. But I've known Charlotte all my life and I always wanted to go into care work, After I started to get a bit of experience with children, I started to come and see Ruby and work with Ruby. So it was quite nice that I already knew her. Ruby's got 2 other PAs. All the PAs are like friends to Charlotte, so we all kind of fit in with each other. I've been trained with children with disabilities, so like it's the simplest things like dressing and washing and knowing which way she can move and that it's not going to cause her any discomfort. Can I smile? I'm more like part of the family kind of thing. We're closer because we can arrange things between ourselves, whereas everywhere else I've got to kind of have the distance of there being a middleman. So if I wanted to speak to the families, I have to speak to them through somebody else. I think this is much nicer for Ruby.
The individual budget is very adaptable and parents can choose how it supports their child, whether it's equipment, facilities, home-based personal assistant hours or short breaks.
Paying for carers' train tickets, paying for their entrance into the parks, equipment that Ruby wouldn't get elsewhere that I knew that would benefit her and the family as well, together. I think that helped decide the amount of hours and how the money was used.
With Harry's money, we still put some aside to use for support hours, but we decided to use it in other ways as well. Harry had recently started going to a martial arts class, a mainstream martial arts class, and we noticed that we were the only parents of that kind of age person that was attending that was taking our son and staying for the session. So we used his budget to pay for someone to buddy him. So we gave them £5 for petrol and we paid for their class, which meant that Harry had just someone there for him if he wasn't sure or needed to ask something. And he also got a lift there with somebody and he could have a chat on the way. But what it meant was, instead of, if we'd have had support hours for Harry, that would have probably cost us about £30 each session. But because we'd used a buddy system, it cost us £10 a session. So it meant that we could obviously put money to really good use.
We had a hot tub provided by a charity, but it became increasingly hard to run the hot tub. Using the individual budget meant that we could run the hot tub and the chemicals used in the hot tub. Ruby has a lot of skeletal problems. She has scoliosis and hip problems. It meant that we could use it for physio, but also it's just fun having our friends around and just enjoying time with the sensory warmth of the water.
Yeah, you really smiled, didn't you?
Jack is Ruby's brother and he's 13.
I'm Jack and I'm Ruby's big brother and I'm a young carer. With Ruby, I enjoy spending time with her.
She's fallen asleep on various occasions with Jack cuddling her in his arms, and it gives them time that they both enjoy together because it's hard with their such different abilities.
Hit me.
That's a good boy.
We wanted to find somewhere locally for Callum to ride, so we found a local stables that are very accommodating for everyone and children with special needs as well, and Callum absolutely loves it.
Once the family's got the young person support plan signed off, then clearly what they've got is a list of activities and services that have been agreed, and then they've just got to go and get it. And that's actually really quite a challenge because it's not always out there. It is a big issue for the families to go out and find it, but they're very, very resourceful. And they will go to agencies that we used and we had to pay quite a lot of money for, and they'll negotiate better rates.
When it came to looking for personal assistance, I was lucky enough to actually know some people that did that kind of work, which was really good because they came by word of mouth, recommended by people as well, which was really useful. So I didn't actually have to advertise.
That's me and that's her.
Yeah, and Lauren.
Lauren.
It would be paying for PAs to be able to develop a circle of friends for her, to be able to develop her maths and to develop her speech and language, social interaction.
Yeah, I did.
And doing things with other people.
Yes, I did.
And doing what you are being asked to do.
Yes, I do. No.
I've also recruited a PA now, and Lee knows her, and it's somebody she wants to have as her support assistant. She's got a son herself who is a similar age to Andley, so they're chums already. And it's all stuff that we wouldn't have been able to get. It's all really good quality PA support that you wouldn't be able to get from the service providers. You'd have to make do with whoever turns up.
Harry absolutely loves theme parks, and he would go to a theme park once a week if he could. So what we did with his budget, we bought a Merlin annual card, which means that he can go to Chessington World of Adventure, Thorpe Park, Alton Towers as many times as he likes in a year. And because he has a disability, he got a carer card at no cost, which means that he can have someone go with him. So it's a good deal. And how that's worked really well is that that's time that he has with his dad, because his dad likes fast rides as well. That's been a really, really good use of the money.
Families make the most of their budgets by using local inclusive activities or social support through friends at little or no cost.
Initially I was thinking, well, we might, having sleepovers would be brilliant, because that's what my daughter wants to do, to have to then pay a family for my daughter to go and have a sleepover. I've then realised that by chatting to other parents of children with disabilities, we've come to an arrangement where two families do reciprocal sleepovers. So Andley has her friend Ruby come and have a sleepover here, and then she goes and has a sleepover at their house.
We also used the individual budget to purchase a blackout blind for Ruby's room. It was a simple piece of equipment that we couldn't afford, but it meant that we could go up into Ruby's room and use a lot of light work with Ruby. Yeah, you're smiling.
I think it's just increased his experience, really. I think we've managed to access a lot more different things, certainly more of his interests. Those things we've accessed he really enjoys, and I think it's brought him out of his shell.
Callum has a personal assistant who takes him out for short breaks to activities he enjoys and also spends time with him at home.
In our budget we have 2 hours for the swimming that he takes him out on a Tuesday, 2 hours on a Saturday for trampolining. We have an evening per month, and we're also building up to having an overnight stay where he'll come for the weekend. But we're building up to that. I think that's more us than Callum, but we're building up to that.
I've also been surprised at how many other services are available that I didn't know about in the area, that once I started asking, I suddenly thought, oh, actually, I don't need to pay for that because that service is being offered in from so-and-so, and I hadn't realised that. So.
I feel that having a sibling with a disability almost takes the focus away from the sibling without the disability. It means that we can spend time together, spend quality time and just chat, that's all. Having that time to just ask him how his day went, how day at school went, it makes you connect with your child again.
Before we had individual budget, it was like confusing because I had to be with Ruby more, and I had to devote more of my life to her. We had to have Ruby closer to us in the rooms because we didn't have any night carers or anything, but now we can trust the night carers and stuff. I can actually go out with my friends, I can go to the town, I can actually do things without having to stay behind for a bit and dress Ruby, take care of Ruby, and then I can actually be slightly more normal, really.
He almost felt guilty he should be there helping me with Ruby, and that guilt's taken away from him because he knows that Ruby's safe, because he loves her and he wants to know that she's safe and happy.
I think having an individual budget has worked really well for Harry because it's really opened up his horizons. He's doing more, much more within his local community, and he's getting out and meeting people and it's not always with mum and dad, which I think is a real bonus when you're 17 years old.
I think with the individual budget it's meant that we could kind of spend time with each other, more kind of family time rather than caring.
Each individual budget is reviewed regularly with the family to see how it's been used and if any changes are needed.
The individual budget is looked at, and it's looked at as to whether how the money has been spent, whether all the funds have been spent for the year, what's worked well and what hasn't, and that's an opportunity to really evaluate how the IB has worked and then to plan for the year ahead.
My relationship with social services has changed just purely that I don't feel that I need to be calling them, asking for care, changing care. I know that I can do it myself. I have the plan there, and as long as I go by the plan, then I don't need to call them.
This process has really improved my relationship with social services. We're now feeling like we're working in partnership together, that we're actually, the trust has been developed, which obviously is very, very important for us to be able to work together for the best things for my daughter.
I really hope that he will be able to quite smoothly transfer to having his individual budget as an adult.
Ruby's actual health needs are deteriorating. I'm needing more help to go out with a carer and spend time as a family. So I hope that will continue, that we can go out together when Ruby's well.
That's good.
Oh. And no, don't stop.
My only concern with individual budgets is that it will dissolve, because that would have a big impact on Callum and us as a family.
Harry recently celebrated his 18th birthday, and adult services had already been involved with his individual budget. So as a result, they've taken it on, giving Harry a smooth transition. The government plans to offer individual budgets to all families with disabled children from April 2014.
If any parents came and asked me whether I thought it was worthwhile having an individual budget for their child, I'd say definitely go for it. There's nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Personally, I would say for any families that are thinking about taking on the individual budgets, would be to talk perhaps to some of the parents that are on the scheme and just to see how it has helped their children and their families. I can't see how anybody wouldn't want to do it. Callum loves it and it's really helped us as a family.
It's no papers. I'll get paper.
We'll get one on the way home, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, go for it. It's really useful to have friends around to support you in doing that. But it's been a very empowering process, and it's at the end of the day it means that you get the freedom of choice to be able to choose with your child about what they want for their future.
The hard work is worth it. Ultimately, what you get out of that hard work means that you can spend so much time with the family enjoying rather than caring.
It's certainly improved our lives, and I can't imagine that it can't do that for many other people, to be fair.
I've got the power to choose, rather than being dictated to almost sometimes, on how I'm going to use my care. So it's given me the power, and it's given me a bit of confidence, really, because I know Ruby best, I know my family best, and I know what's best for us. So I'd say, give it a go.